Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our office hour number 37. We started about a year ago, and these are still going strong, which is amazing. We're here to talk about GRC and best practices, building risk, things like that. And for all of those other ones, it's probably IRM is the new terminology. But we have our product success resources here, as well as a couple of others to talk about just kind of best practice related to risk. As a part of the format, just want to let you know that the first 30 minutes is all about talking about the topic nature, going through that with a subject matter expert, and the remaining 30 minutes is all about open questions. For those who are listening to the video recording, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this recording. If you have any questions, feel free to just reach out to us. My name is Charles Rayburn. You can email me at charles.rayburn@servicenow.com. We'll do our best to provide answers to those questions for you moving forward. So without further ado, I want to hand the baton over to Jagan Roy, who's our product success subject matter expert for the topic nature, and his team. So Jagan, if you want to take the ball and introduce your team, and then we can get started.
Sure. Thanks, Charles and Tim. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to discuss GRC best practices. And we are from product organization. My team has grown, three of us now. We have Ashwin Raghavan, Candace Trent, both work for product success. We are working with product team and making sure that you have people or resource available from product team where you can give your feedback, ask any questions, discuss about best practices. So we will be helping you throughout your journey. So as we go further, during your implementation or post implementation also, if you have any questions, we will try to help, or if not, we'll try to get the right set of resource. I would, today we're going to talk about some of the best practices, how to get ready for GRC implementation. And this is based on our industry experience. All three of us have around 10 to 15 years experience in GRC industry, working worldwide for large and small customers. With ServiceNow, based on our experience, we want to get through some of the details, some of the intrinsic details about readiness, principles, recommendations, and have a scorecard around how you can measure and make sure that your GRC program is successful. If we can go to the next slide. So when we talk about GRC journey or readiness, we talk about the maturity journey, right? Every customer is in different phase. We'll also talk about the knowledge that is available for the resources to you from ServiceNow. We'll talk about that. Let's go to the next slide. There are various stages of maturity based on our industry experience, and you're also talking to some of the analysts, right? Manual, basic, repeatable, managed, and optimized. Most of the customers are in manual stage or basic stage. Now, in the recent past, because of the last couple of years or last year's pandemic and other areas, customers are trying to get into more of repeatable, managed, and optimized stages, right? So some of them have tools. They are starting to enhance the usage. As ServiceNow, as an organization, we're also working with various types of customers in different levels, but the product supports till the 5th stage of the maturity, right? So products have automations around that. We're also working on continuous monitoring. We're also working on AI ML kind of use cases, and we're also working on working with first line, second line of defense in the which can help and make sure that you keep your organization and business in check in terms of risk and compliance frameworks. Next slide. To help you to be successful, we have a lot of things or the videos or the checklists that are available within our GRC community. If you are not part of our GRC community, please register yourself. There are a lot of discussion happens from customers and partners and prospects. It's an open forum. It's free. You can just register, go to ServiceNow community and search for GRC and subscribe for all the alerts. We keep releasing some of the best practices, learnings on a monthly basis, and there is quarterly roadmap session that happens in the community One is upcoming in the month of September. If you are not registered, if you are not having access, please reach out to Charles or your account team. We're happy to help you there in terms of we talk about what's coming up, what's our roadmap session, what's our vision as a company for GRC. We talk a lot details around that. Next slide. The question and topic that we're going to raise today is how ready you are for your GRC program, and some of the what we observed from our experience is some of the challenges that is faced by customers, right? Not getting right set of requirement, no implementation strategy, or scope creeping. These three are the biggest challenge that we observe in the GRC program. Some of the opportunities how to solve or overcome these challenges are having a good project management and good decision making, and having a good leadership background, either from both technology or from the support point of view. So you can go to the next slide. For the overall GRC success, we have this, our understanding is there are five levels of programs that we have seen customers are really successful. Today, myself and my colleagues are going to go through the details of all these 5 areas. First one is program strategy, second is program design, third is data governance, fourth is resource, fifth is the stage of crawl, walk, run. Now, you know that any program implementation depends on 3 factors, right? People, process, technology. We talk about all these 3 things. I would hand it over to my colleagues to talk in detail for each of those topics. Over to you, Candice and Ashwin.
Thank you, Jagan. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk to you today about program strategy and design. So how do we develop a program strategy for GRC? It's really all about, understanding your overarching program vision. What are your business drivers and goals? Is it to provide collaboration across different teams, provide visibility to management and key stakeholders on risk and compliance information? Is it to improve efficiencies and reporting? Perhaps provide ease of understanding, regulatory compliance and your posture against certain regulations, and really just understanding your overall project success factors and agreeing on that with all the stakeholders involved. It's also important to understand, go back, Ashwin. Thank you. Understand, other specific program goals and needs. So it's not just having a vision, but also, really drilling in and trying to tie some metrics to your goals and key outcomes. Is it to reduce cost by 30%? Perhaps you're spending, 3 FTEs managing risk and compliance activities. It's a very manual process. And you're trying to automate that. Well, you can, really equate that to saving time and money by consolidating, and automating your process. And also perhaps you have other, tools that you're using, such as SharePoint and Excel, and it's just creating this inefficient manual process. Well, what if you were able to sunset and stop using some of those tools? Can you equate that to, some cost savings, maybe a reduction by 90% in those other tools by moving to an automated consolidated system? All right, next slide, please. And here we have just some program strategy and tips. So on the left-hand side, you'll see some fruitful options, things that are positive to consider when automating your GRC process. What is it going to provide for your organization to really implement this GRC tool? So you can start with some of these things here, such as what we just talked about, visibility, reducing operating costs, complying with regulations. And then if you move to the right-hand side, these are some of the challenging choices that you could stick with, such as just continuing to do, a manual effort to create the audit committee report. Maybe you decide to still implement 2 different GRC systems, which gets to be very costly and disjointed. Maybe you're still remediating critical audit findings and not prioritizing them appropriately. and just doing some of these really manual things where you could translate those to some of the positive, fruitful options. All right, next slide, please. So what are the keys for GRC success when it comes to program design? Next slide. First of all, we start with understanding, what is our framework and model that we're trying to achieve here? Do we have specific regulations and standards, or a COSO or COBIT framework that we're trying to follow? Do we have policy exceptions that we're trying to manage? What is our risk assessment, compliance attestation process? Things of that nature, really drilling in, understanding what frameworks you're modeling after. And then also it's important to understand your change management process. How are you going to manage changes that your business users might have? Do you have a governance council or a change management committee board where you're routing these various changes through? It's really important to document that process and understand who's involved in approving the changes to the system. And also, when it comes to technology and architecture, there's a lot of things to consider there, such as identifying any integration requirements, maybe branding, agreeing on how you're going to brand this tool. We have many customers, that change colors, add logos, various things to really make it their own. Maybe they want to call it a certain system, that's fine as well. And then just understanding the security around that, how you're going to set up access roles, a lot to consider there as it relates to the design of your technology and architecture. And then finally, really the goal is to reduce silos. So it's, managing the different approvals that a lot of these compliance activities have to go through. How can you reduce those silos and come together as one team, on this consolidated platform? And you also want to reduce, duplication of data. And that also comes with, breaking down silos. If you have multiple teams reporting on issues, it's agreeing to how do we categorize criticality of issues? What is a scoring system for that? How do we rate them? Breaking down those silos and coming to an agreement on how to manage those types of activities is really important as it relates to your program design. And I will kick it over to Ashwin. Oh, sorry. Finally, it's also, again, just breaking down the silos. These are all the different departments that could be involved. And as we started the conversation here, it's really inspiring everybody to own risk. I mean, whether you think about it, if these people have an invested interest in GRC or not, they own some element of risk. And so you have to inspire them and understand, what all these different groups bring to the table when it relates to managing risk and compliance activities. Next slide. And now Ashwin will talk about data governance, resources, and a crawl, walk, run process.
Thanks, Candace. Thanks, Jagan. All right, so trying to continue with the story of what we're just trying to explain here, keys for GRC success. We quickly understood what is that we have to look for within program strategy and program design. Followed to that is something called as data governance, resources, and the implementation approach, if you will, which is crawl, walk, and run. So let's quickly deep dive and see what is that we have to look for the data governance elements, right? So if you think about data as one of the key elements for any such program, if you will, right? We say data is the new oil, and there is abundance of data. Data is just a galore within an enterprise. So how do we really harmonize the content that you have, right? Data could be your operational data, could be your data that you receive from your different regulators, right? Data that you will have to report on, right? So on and so forth. So there are multiple different elements and there are multiple different types of data that you really have to worry about, harmonize, and but take it through a certain level of scrubbing and a process to make it meaningful for the whole GRC implementation as such. So how do we begin that? The first one would be process analysis, right? Where we just go deep dive, look at different types of business processes that really contribute to your different data streams within an enterprise. Try to see if it is, if there is any scope for re-engineering to harmonize on such content, right? Follow to that is something called as taxonomy. This is something which we have seen customers struggle to do because a typical could be a risk or a control could be defined in multiple different formats in multiple different different statements which really mean the same. So how do you really harmonize and arrive at a certain common taxonomy, which all the three lines of defense can really understand and not to pollute the system by trying to have the same kind of content multiple times? So that's very key. So as the saying goes, if you cannot perform the GRC exercise on an Excel sheet, right, you cannot do it on a tool, right? Tool is just to help you to enhance the experience, to automate things, and to give you a seamless integrated approach. But trying to get the house in order by fixing some of these elements will really help you to have the implementation in the best way possible and a smooth transition into digitizing your whole workflow, right? Follow to that is external internal data sources. There's a lot of data flowing in as an enterprise or a company, depending on the kind and the nature of business you as an enterprise are into, right? You have feeds coming in, you have regulatory inputs, you have different systems that you interact with, you have e-commerce content and whatnot, right? And there are interfaces, APIs running, communicating between two different systems, multiple different systems, and the different sources. So how do you really harmonize them again at a place and scrub them to really ensure what is relevant and what is not relevant, right? And trying to structure them is very key and critical, and identifying the critical sources would be very critical. Data management strategies, how do you handle such huge data? Could also be internal, could also be external to what is relevant to you. What needs to be considered for the program and what can be omitted or what can be ignored, right? To arrive at this consensus, the data has to be structured to give you some meaningful insights, right? GRC governance committee, that's again very critical for your taxonomy if you try to correlate them, right? Having a common taxonomy at the group level, at individual business lines is very critical, for which you will need to have a committee who can approve such changes. Anything getting into the taxonomy could be a level 1, level 2, or level 3, and align, at the group level, which can really help you report to the board in a single cohesive fashion, right? So the committee can really help you achieve this, so that there are, no internal differences among different business lines, and we all speak the same language to achieve the end goal. All right. Follow to that. On the next pillar for the GRC success is resources. We just saw how can we have a better program strategy? How can we have an efficient program design? What are the key elements that we have to worry about when it comes to data? And the next critical thing would be resources, right? Any project as such, to be successful, you need to have the key resources. The resources could be your people resources, your blessing from the leadership, right? Your data elements, your knowledge, right? Having your right set of people work on it, and your future state diagrams and so on, right? So if you look back, identifying critical teams would be very elementary, starting from the business. What is the exact need of the business? What is the end objective that you're trying to achieve? What is the real business need that you're trying to solve, right? Having the right set of IT competent people, right, who understands, the tool, the solution, trying to adapt to the best practices available, right? Trying to leverage in a way that, you don't end up a roadblock by adapting to the right technology, because technology is evolving on a day-to-day basis, right? Trying to get out of your older ways of working with a solution and trying to adapt the best and industry best practices within IT would really give you a lot of efficiencies gain and take you up to the next level. Operations, again, very critical for day-to-day operations in trying to institutionalize or try to run with the whole engagement as such. So it needs stronger traction and governance committee to really ensure you make it as a reality. With a combination of business needs and with the help of IT, you can make it a reality with a strong product ownership and operations, right? So this is a gist about what is very critical for you from a team standpoint to make it a real success. Gather documents. There are some of these points which we think is critical for you to begin with. As I said, business requirements would be the entry point or something to begin with, where you clearly call out, you articulate your goals. What is the business outcome? What is it you're trying to achieve? What are your current problems? Where do you really want to head? Some key use cases that you really want to solve, right? And along the way, you also try to refine your process, right? It's just not to boil the ocean and make your process and tool complex so that you need another 100 FTE to maintain the tool. At the end of the day, what we're trying to see is what is the efficiency gain? How easy it is to use the tool, right? If it makes my life complex, it doesn't make sense to have a tool in place and trying to add to the complexity. So if you will, and if there is a chance to relook at your future state diagrams by having your business processes redefined or refined, would really be a critical point that you have to consider. So looking at your current state of business processes and your future state on where do you want to land is very critical. And your reporting needs. I'm sure you have your own reporting needs as an organization where you have to, derive monthly reports, could be weekly reports. You have to submit your reports to the board, so on and so forth. Regulator, auditors have all various different reporting needs, right? Ultimately, an outcome of a certain process is quantified through a report that you really present, where you measure your efficiency gains, or you look at some data and interpret and so on. So reporting is a very critical need, where you really sit down and flush out what kind of reports that you really want to look at the end of the day, right? Streamlining workflows, right? Workflows are meant for a reason to move from step A to step B to achieve a certain, process, right? At the same time, it doesn't make sense to really complicate the workflow by going through too many levels of approvals, right? Look at where you can really tweak the process and have a lean workflow. Also, at the same time, ensuring you cover all the business needs so that it's a win-win in terms of having your process defined, and also at the end of the day, your business users also ensure, or the business users really like using the tool. It doesn't become a pain at the wrong place, so that it doesn't become a bane, rather becomes a boon, right? Legacy data models, as I said, there is abundance of data. You have older legacy data models in the systems, which you may have to relook at and really ensure that they are fit for purpose and you really need it the way that it was kind of developed, right? So that is something that you really have to understand and ensure that you don't push abundance of information into your tool if you don't think it's not needed for the current process. You just have to rethink on a bit and cherry pick on what is really needed, and arrive at a data model such that it becomes more efficient, rather than just pushing in and dumping in some information without appropriate relationships among them, right? Sample reports and taxonomy, which we already touched upon. It's very critical to know what kind of reporting and what is the real outcome of a certain workflow or a business process. It has to be very clearly articulated to say, this is my end goal. This is the kind of report that I would like to see. It gives me very meaningful information where I have to take some insightful actions. So that's very critical. Along the way, after having these teams and kind of documents, finalized on, it's very critical to select your right implementation partner for the whole program, right? We have certified implementation partners who work with ServiceNow, who are really the experts, who understand ServiceNow well in advance, who can really walk you through the whole approach of the GRC implementation, if you will, right? So selecting the appropriate partner who can work with you from an implementation standpoint and an advisory standpoint becomes very critical for success, so that you get time to value, you implement the project at the earliest, and you start reaping the benefits. So the partner becomes very critical, as I said, both implementation as well as advisory, if you really think about the bigger picture. Identify training resources and needs. As I said, once you have a tool or a solution in place, unless there is appropriate change management and there is appropriate Whereas where you can educate your end users, the tool becomes just useless, right? So identifying those critical training resources, needs, and the way you really open up the tool, you train people, you ensure everybody is onboarded in the right way, everybody understands what the tool is for, everybody knows how to use the tool in an appropriate manner, right? Becomes very critical so that the tool is leveraged in the appropriate manner, trying to cut down your cycle times and trying to cut down, a lot of to and fro and so on and so forth. So change management is a very critical piece if you look at the whole circle. And it's also one of the toughest things. People are generally, very reluctant for change, but that's the reality. Trying to move away from Excel sheets into a system, there is a bit of, push there, but it has to be in a certain manner where you ensure the users understand what is the kind of efficiency gain that it could really bring in by having this kind of a tool, and how easy, how easy or how it can contribute to their day in their life. So change management is a very critical piece. All right. So moving on to the next slide, this clearly talking about and trying to continue my story with my previous slide on how you can have your data governance. So just one such example where we picked up for ISO 27001. And that's our compliance area that I'm for a standard that I'm trying to comply to. As a function, I have environment, health and safety, and how there are certain processes mapped under each of these, and how harmonized my risks are, right? And how harmonized my controls are, right? That's what this clearly depicts. And further on, how do we really conduct test plans and self-assessments, again, which control owners really do. And then again, third line comes in asking for evidences. So if you look at these two elements, harmonizing on these two elements and creating appropriate relationships is very critical, right? Having a relationship between your risk and a control, trying to say that, okay, this risk is mitigated by a control in place. For in this example, fire or explosion is mitigated by a control called as equipment maintenance is correct, right? This is very, very critical. Without having these clear relationships defined as a control owner and as a risk manager, you cannot quantify your risk rating at the end of the day. So these relationships are critical among processes, 3 Ps as Jagan stated, people, processes, and functions, if you will. That's where you start your real GRC program. So these are very critical. And ServiceNow also offers you robust mechanisms to really do that in the way of entity types, entity classes, and entities as such. So please look at our other video tutorials for an elaborated explanation of how really they work and how easy are they to really use, and how you can bring in content, how relationships are really maintained, how control objectives are mapped to different entity types, and so on. So please go watch out for those bite-sized videos in the community. All right, moving on, crawl, walk, run. So now we have a right program strategy in place. We have a program design, robust design. We know what kind of data that really has to be fed into the system. We have a common taxonomy now. I know what is my risk register looking like. And I have the right resources in place, starting from business operations, IT, blessing from the leadership, tone at the top, right? And now I have the right partner. Now, how do I really execute, right? Execution, again, is just not a technical execution as such. It really means how you would really want to approach to this problem. What we would always want to advise our customers is take a crawl, walk, and run approach. It cannot be a big bang right at day one. It's always good to take baby steps so that you ensure there are small little milestones and which you achieve, where it gives you a sense of satisfaction and also time to value, so that you know that you've been trying to achieve something where you have an appropriate result, which makes you also look at your future set of things that you have to accomplish, and also rework on such plans to make it a reality, right? Trying to do a big bang, trying to solve all the different problems that you have might not be an appropriate approach, even with the appropriate resource, people, and even with the budget. It's always good to take baby steps and solve simple use cases, which is very critical for you. Again, say some of the points that we have thought about from our experiences is look at these inputs as such on how to prioritize use cases, right? There could be some urgent regulatory needs, right? You may have to have a tool in place by the end of this quarter or the next quarter, without which you could get heavily fined. So such needs have to be prioritized. so that they could be the first use cases, followed by which you could take the other use cases, once you have this in play and, users start using them and they know what is the advantage that it could really bring in. Internal management decisions, for whatever reasons it could be, to save on cost, to save on a loophole that you might have in a certain processes. So such use cases have to be prioritized, right? And you agree on a certain roadmap on how you really want to approach this. Could be in an agile way, and trying to break it down into smaller items and take it a step after the other, right? Breaking old habits is very critical. As I stated, trying to move from a manual way of working, if you are at maturity 0, and trying to move into a system is always a big change. And at times it becomes very hard, and there is a bit of reluctance within the team to adapt to change. It might sound difficult looking at things where there are certain controls and there are certain ways to accomplish things. But honestly, trying to get used to or acquainted to a certain tool, which is developed to really make your lives easy, will really help you go a long way. So being open-minded, trying to break your old habits is very critical to make it a successful, right? And we always say, do not lead a tool to drive the process. It has to be the other way around, where you refine your process, where you ensure your process is for a reason that it really helps your day in and day-to-day operations, and it really helps you for your efficiency gains, right? That's what we would advise. Moving on. So what we've also done from our experience is, again, we have a GRC readiness scorecard. It's no brain teaser here. It's a simple set of questions where you can just go fill in to really give you a sense of feeling where do you stand as an enterprise, to help you gauge yourself on what is the kind of preparation that you may have to do. This is a very interesting set of questions. We would strongly recommend you to go download this Excel sheet from the community. We also have the link here. I'm sure we'll have these slides circulated. So please get in there, look at these questions, go through them and see where you stand as an enterprise to have a GRC implementation underway. We call this to be the GRC readiness scorecard. So again, so what are the few takeaways from this session, right? The first one would be download the scorecard, as I just said. It gives you a purview of where you stand. It also, along the way, conduct a self-assessment on where you are. What are the few things that you have to worry about immediately? How should you progress? What are the different artifacts that you have? What are the future goals? How is that you want to progress? What are your immediate business requirements? And where do you want to head? Is very critical. And please review our other tutorials on how to really implement the ServiceNow IRM. To begin with, there are bite-sized videos to help you for every use case. How to start from ground zero. What are those key 3 or 4 things that you have to look at to start with the program? How do you achieve certain use cases? Is all clearly very well articulated. And we were very happy to take questions. Please do reach out to us if you do have any questions, and we'll be very happy to assist you. We do also have some links embedded here just to route you to the appropriate videos on YouTube. As I said, bite-sized videos to get you started, right? Just not to boil the ocean and just to throw information at you. We've just clearly classified them as short videos. If you're just looking at, how to perform control attestations, right? How do we set up indicator templates for automated control monitoring, right? How do you set up control test, right? What do entities really mean? How do I set up my entity structure? What does entity class mean? What does entity type mean? So on and so forth. So you have a lot of quick start bite-sized videos. Please do take a look at that. They're very insightful. And trust me, you will learn a lot from these videos to, in general, to implement the ServiceNow IRM suite, and it'll take you a long way. Again, we do also have certain short videos for vendor risk management and our other offerings as well, business continuity and so on. Right? Please do take a look at them and subscribe to the channel, and ensure you exchange your thoughts, your views on the community. And we have a lot of experts sharing information on the community, and I'm sure one or the other person would be able to help you to respond to your question. Since the whole model is such way that these communities really help you to exchange content with like-minded people like you, practitioners like you, right? Where there are a lot of people asking questions, answering to your questions and so on. So it's really great to exchange and collaborate on this forum. That's all I had. Thank you so much for listening in. Let me pass on the ball to Charles.
All right. Well, thank you guys for covering that material. I wanted to ask Gary, and I see Tammy, she had to depart, but Gary, if you had any questions, now would be the time. And if not, then I think we can wrap this up early.
No, I'm good. I would like to get a copy of the slides that were presented. This was an excellent presentation.
Perfect. Now we'll definitely be able to provide that post this call. So Jagan and team, you guys have done another fabulous job there. And also too, Tammy said she would love to have a separate session with you guys to review updates coming in Rome since they're in Quebec. So I think that would be a great opportunity as well. Any other comments, questions?
Sure. So I think thanks, Charles and Gary and other team members who are listening, and thanks to my team, Ashwin and Candice, fantastic job. We are doing a lot of innovation in GRC. I'm really thrilled and excited that we are releasing new UI. Wait for September release. The whole equation of UI UX is changing. We are coming up with a lot of new functionality and a lot of new apps also, right? We do have regulatory change management that got released. BCM is getting enhanced. Vendor risk changes are coming up. Workspaces are coming up built on new UI. And as we go further, next year, we're going to have a lot of much more new functionality that we're going to release. This year focus was mainly on the UI UX and changing that landscape around. So, please do reach out to your account team or Charles or any of the team members. We are happy to help from product team and product success team here. Thanks, Charles, for the opportunity.
All right. No, thank you all as well. So without any further questions, I think we'll end early. Thank you all so much. And for those listening to the recording, if you have any questions, definitely reach out to us. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful Friday. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.